Suddenly, after all this waiting, now has arrived. It's been a long time coming. All history has tended to this point, and finally it is here. Now. Welcome to now. Let us not waste a breath of it, for soon our friend now will sweep past us in the corridor and become our enemy then. In the space between, keeping guard over both, stands Saturday Night Fry. You are more welcome than you will ever understand. I'm Stephen Fry, and I have a fresh litter of just the cutest, downiest, softest-eyed puppies all squeaking, writhing and clambering in my guest basket today. They are actor, writer, beast child, the Queen of Toast and Toast of Queens, Emma Thompson. Addiction specialist, therapist of stars and star of therapists, Beechy Colclough. Restaurateur, press prince and entrepreneur, one of Sigmund Freud's most public relations, Matthew Freud. Bitch god, suck pig and tormented boy genius, John Sessions. Songwriter, singer, poet of love, betrayal and wonder, Joan Armatrading. We welcome too our old friends, the Laurel and Hardy of inference and intuition, the Mike and Bernie Winters of the smart set, Laurie Taylor and Tom Baker. The sound engineer has jacked us into the broadcast matrix, the microphones are live, the on-air light flashes like Ruby Wax's eyelids, the rough beast of Saturday Night Fry screams into being. And as the mighty Wurlitzer of Bob Barrett and Roy Wootton playing Tritch Tratch Polka fades away into the purple distance, I bid you wild, wild welcome. Now, let fame that all hunt after in their lives live registered upon our brazen tombs. So opens Love's Labour's Lost. Fame that all hunt after in their lives. If that was true in Shakespeare's day, how much truer is it now? They say there's only one advantage in being famous. You can easily get a table in a restaurant. We live in an age in which it's common to hear school children reveal that their ambition is to be famous. Not to do any particular thing, but simply to be famous. Between 1901 and 1904, 74% of people mentioned in newspapers came from politics, business, the military and the professions. After 1922, well over half came from the entertainment business. The proportion now must be even higher. What it must do to a journalist, endlessly to feel part of an industry designed to celebrate actors, musicians and sportsmen, it isn't hard to speculate. The iron enters their soul. I'm a journalist, they say to themselves. I write and think and comment, and yet people are not interested in me. They are interested in this barely pubescent ignoramus on Coronation Street, that self-regarding film actor or fatuous footballer. The symbiosis upon which celebrity and journo relies is an uneasy one. The lines separating the two have become battle lines. The celeb feels that he lives in a culture that derides success, builds him up to knock him down. The journo feels he has a duty to expose the hollow vanity of a social stratum composed of the overpaid, overpraised and overpampered. In between, the public veers from star idolatry to cynicism. The Madonna whore extremes of Diana worship or Diana revulsion are rewritten time after time in the public's view of everyone, from weatherman to rock legend. Maybe, just maybe, the only advantage of being famous is that you don't have to cope with the problem of working out how you feel about not being famous. Yes, famous people will say it's a drag, and certainly there is no moral quality to fame, but in this culture it's damnably irritating to see the attention, praise and mystique lavished on those whose attainments often amount no more than cuteness or luck. Those in Anthony Burgess's great phrase, adventitiously endowed with irrelevant photogeneity. So, around this table we have well-known people. No doubt Matthew Freud will be able to divide us all into A-list, B-list, C-list and other such horrors. But let me ask each of you to suppose that you have in front of you the ethicalist's famous and versatile button. If you press it, nothing will alter in your life or work, save this. You will no longer be famous. No longer be a celebrity, recognised in the street, written about in the papers, able to get a same-day table at the Ivy restaurant. Nothing else about your life changes but that. No fame. Do you press that button? Emma Thompson?
Yes.
Definitely? Every day, for sure?
Well, I think so now, but I probably, when I was younger, wouldn't have known.
Interesting. We'll come back to you. Tom Baker?
No, I wouldn't. I would really not press that button at all. I've always wanted to be famous and to be recognised, especially recognised by interesting people or rich people or fascinating or sexy people.
John Sessions?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think I'd have to say I mustn't press the button because I don't know what else I could do as a living.
No, you do the same thing. That's the point.
Yes.
Is you wouldn't be famous as a result.
would do it. I would do it to the Bar Theatre, St Andrews. You mean?
No, just fame would not be something that happened to actors. You do the same work entirely. It's a totally nominal supposing button.
No, such little pile of salt. I sadly have to look into my pathetic soul and say, whatever it is, that engages whatever I can do in the profession.
Don't be ashamed of it.
Oh, God, I must better go to my priest.
Joan, Armatrading.
Yeah.
I'd press the button.
Like a shot.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and as if I can still keep doing it, what's the difference?
Beechy, I called you Colclough, but in fact, perhaps it should be Cochling.
Cochling.
Cochling. All right.
The Irish pronunciation.
Thank you.
I think that I'm sort of split because I think I've become more well known for the people that I see rather than what I actually do. So if I could become famous for what I do for my work, I wouldn't press the button. I would like to press the button and not be seen as that guy that sees famous people.
Yes. Laurie, you're famous for saving the afternoon shift, amongst many other things.
No, I'm not famous.
Matthew.
Well, I don't have the button to push, but I think my observation would be that there are probably two buttons. One is a famous face and the other is a famous name. And I think most of the upside of fame is connected with your name, and most of the downside of fame is connected with your face. And I think the ideal position to be in is to have a famous name that you can use as you would like to use it, but not have a famous face which allows other people to take advantage of the fact they know who you are.
I think that's fascinating. Thank you all for that very much. But now it's time to turn to our work in progress chair, and perching like a delicate bird on the work in progress stool this evening is one of our more remarkable citizens. BAFTAs, Oscars, Golden Globes and a host of other awards have propelled this child of a distinguished acting family into great prominence and esteem. I first met Emma Thompson 20 years ago, when all around here was green fields, and we were young and quite charmingly stupid. Our stupidity may no longer be charming, but middle age has its compensations. Emma, work in progress. You've taken a year off from acting parts, I think. Can you share with us what has been simmering in the stock pot of clear juices that is your mind?
I wish I'd never met you. I did. I took a year off after Sense and Sensibility, and then I worked all last year, did primary colours, and then took a Spanish course because I wanted to visit Chile, because I'm writing a script, or trying to anyway, and I don't know whether it'll come out. You know, you always, whenever you're writing anything, you always preface the announcement with a terrific amount of apology, just in case it doesn't. Yeah, exactly. But about a man called Victor Jara, who was a revolutionary singer and songwriter in Chile in the 1960s and was murdered in the coup in '73, and I've kind of been interested and involved with Chile and El Salvador and Nicaragua when we were babes. Do you remember when we did all benefits and stuff like that, when I was still doing comedy and still doing stand-up and had something to offer a benefit show?
And Bianca Jagger and Andy de la Tour were very prominent in that.
That's right. And then just 2 or 3 years ago, somebody gave me Victor's widow's book and said, would you be interested in writing his story? And I was, and I thought, well, I have to go there, and I've always wanted to go to Chile. Don't know why. So I learnt Spanish with that extraordinary teacher, Michel Tomas, who you may know about.
I've heard of him.
In his 70s, quite a genius. He speaks 13 languages fluently, and he purports to teach you a language in 4 days. 3 days, actually. And so I sat there for 3 days with him, from 9 o'clock in the morning till about 10 o'clock at night. This man, he doesn't wee or anything. I mean, he's just a wizard. He doesn't appear to need to eat or anyway.
And you habla español now?
Un poco. No muy bien, pero estaba una experiencia muy interesante.
Very Castilian.
Very, yes.
It shouldn't be Castilian if you're going to Chile.
Is very different.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did this course and then I went to Chile, which was an extraordinary experience.
Now, why did you feel you had to learn Spanish to write this screenplay, for example?
Well, I felt I had to learn Spanish to go to Chile because I knew that lots of them wouldn't speak English, and I wanted to be able to communicate with the people there so that I'd get some idea of what they were like. Because before starting to write it, I felt very weighed down by the history of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like trying to write something about any revolutionary time. You think, how am I going to do this? I don't know. I'm only little, you know.
Yes, and there are
I've
not
led
many...
a sheltered life in North West 6. I'm never going to be able to understand what this is like. So you've got to go there and meet as many people as you can and get the feeling for it. And it did take that weight of information off my shoulders a wee bit.
And do you find the process of screenwriting difficult? I mean, you've done one, that's an adaptation. This is a sort of adaptation, but not quite in the same mould.
Yes,
it
I'll
doesn't
have to
get
make
easier.
up a lot of it. It'll be an original, I would say. Yes, I do. I do find it hard. I mean, I don't think it can be as hard as writing a novel. But I like it. I really like writing dialogue and finding characters and creating scenes. I do very much enjoy it. I didn't know. I mean, it's one of those things you just sort of have to suck it and see, as it were. And I know, just make something of that.
I shall. I wasn't going to say anything about sucking and seeing because I'm not that kind of person. But thank you, and stay with us. Well, now, John Sessions, I believe, has been contemplating this business of fame that we discussed earlier and has chanced upon a remarkable drama, almost Shakespearean in its intensity, that has been unfolding in the lush acres of Beverly Hills.
Weinbaum says it is his democratic right to walk naked through his neighborhood of Inglewood. It's only people's prejudice stopping him, he says, because he's in his mid-50s and over 300 pounds. He continues what he calls his bun fight for freedom. But we're going back to our main story now, the disappearance of Paramount executive Duncan King, following a weekend party at home of fellow movie executive and colleague Kelsey Macbeth. Emilio Esposito has the story.
Peter, it's still kind of hard to say what exactly happened here last night at Kelsey Macbeth's luxury home on Mulholland Drive. Shots were said to have been heard in the early hours of this morning, and Mr. King's car is still parked up in the driveway. An hour ago, I spoke to Macbeth's neighbor's gardener, Fred Sumi, and he says he was definitely awoken by gunshots. Still, he is Filipino and very short, so...
Not the most reliable of witnesses, right. We'll get right back to you, Emilio, but we're getting footage here from an incident that occurred about half an hour ago when Kelsey Macbeth's wife, Lydia, came out to talk to our people from KABC.
As I say, Mr. Duncan King is actually taking a swim right now. I could not possibly comment on the remarks made by my neighbor's gardener. I can only say that he is, well, Filipino and very short.
We're coming back from that report because we got Steve Giraffe in the KNBC chopper with some interesting details. Steve.
Peter, we're just taking a humongous loop here over the San Fernando Valley. You know, it's amazing how flat it all is down there. And, I feel like a kid, looking at all kind of dancing in the thermals.
Always great to hear, Steve, what the valley looks like from the air. Maybe on the way back you could tell us what all the traffic congestion's like on the 10 and the Santa Ana Expressway. We'd like to know, though, what, if anything, is happening at the Macbeth residence.
Yeah, well, there's definitely no body, by which I mean no person, per se, in the Macbeth pool.
So some doubts must be cast on Lydia Macbeth's evidence. Thanks, Steve. I'm Peter Jennings, and this is KABC Los Angeles. Suspicions are definitely thickening up there on Mulholland. Still not a whole lot happening, but we're going back to Emilio Esposito, who's been talking to Marge Vrinth, Lydia Macbeth's masseuse.
She definitely had great breasts, and a really gorgeous body generally. And, I got so shocked, when I saw her come to the front gate. I mean, it's like all her femininity is sort of gone. You mean like she's been unsexed?
Gotta leave Emilio there with that startling revelation. I've been talking to Johnny Horsefeathers, a full-blooded Navajo and expert on magic and stuff. Johnny, just tell the folks what you've been telling me.
People up there in Mulholland, they've been saying weather and stuff's kind of flaky. There's nothing down in Laurel Canyon or Sunset, but up the mountain there, they got snow, they got dust storms, they got houses falling down.
It couldn't just be a quake.
No way. This bad medicine, and I'll tell you something else, Peter. A specific kind of bird up there, the ravens, well, they all gone hoarse.
They can't make their cheep or caw or whatever it is.
You got it. Ravens losing voice. In Navajo lore, that means movie executive being rubbed out.
Incredible. Gotta leave you, Johnny, because we're going straight back over to Danny Schmeihopper in South Central L.A. What you got, Danny?
Peter, this is so unbelievable. This guy here is hooded because he's a pimp, and obviously he doesn't want to get identified. Now, he's got 3 hookers that he refers to as the 3 bitches, and I'm going to ask him to talk. Could you just talk in this microphone, sir? Thank you. Yeah, right here? Okay. Yeah, all I'm saying is, Kelsey Macbeth, he been playing 4-way stuff with my bitches, right? And when I collected the money off of them, you understand, they're telling me how they was urging him to be the head of Paramount Board by any means necessary. And the man, he was kind of unsure. Kept going, if I do it when I do it, I got to do it quick.
So, infidelity, another factor there. We're going back to Mulholland as something is definitely happening.
We definitely got a situation here, Peter. Lydia Macbeth is apparently, if our zoom lenses are to be relied on, obsessively showering. She must have had, 6 showers. No, wrong. She's out of the shower. She's looking out a window now, and her eyes are shut. She must be on some stuff. Oh, my God! She's kind of gone like a young guy. No breast or nothing.
Oh, that's good to know. What's this we're getting? Oh, my goodness. Our cameras are showing the guest house floor, and there is definitely the body of Duncan King. Duncan King is lying on the floor, the man who made the career of so many people. Tom Hanks, Kevin Costner, I've just been reminded, Keanu Reeves, which still does not make it any the less terrible. Yes, confusion hath made its masterpiece.
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get that about the masterpiece.
I was quoting, I believe it's Longfellow.
That ain't no Hiawatha. You talking out your ass, paleface.
Thank you, Johnny Horsefeathers, for your assistance. That's okay. But we're going right back to the front of the Macbeth residence because things are definitely happening. Emilio, talk to me.
We're just picking ourselves up here. Castle Macbeth has driven through his security gates. I repeat, Castle Macbeth has driven out at terrific speed and he's shooting. People are hurt. There's a lot of blood here. I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to concentrate with the bullets and all, I'm running along Mulholland, and the Macbeth car is coming after me.
We have lost Emilio Esposito there. Guess we have some kind of a problem, but we'll go straight back to Steve Giraffe in the chopper. Steve, hit me.
Peter, we're tracking the car as it heads down Woodrow Wilson into Laurel Canyon, and he is burning rubber. He's hit a truck. Wow! And he's knocked it off the edge. I can just read the logo. Banquo Laundry. I confirm it is definitely a Banquo laundry truck. The driver's just gotta be toast, no one's getting out. No, wrong. Kid's getting out. Yeah, he's running. Macbeth was shooting at him, but the police are closing. Macbeth is back in the car. He's given up. He's heading south now. He's on a Sunset. He's gotta be heading for LAX.
Or maybe someplace else.
The car is definitely making for the airport. And oh my God, he swung into the crash barrier. He's out. He's running. Yeah, police vehicle is also stopped. An officer is out and he's running after Macbeth.
Yes, and we got a name to hang on that officer. It is Officer Wayne McDuff. We know that because he has a pronounced limp, some kind of birth defect, we understand. And, Steve, no, hold it, Steve. We got the picture here. Kelsey Macbeth appears to be shot dead. The officer is going over. It's over. No. Macbeth is moving. That's great. Because now we have got one heck of a trial. I'm Peter Jennings, and this is KABC. We'll be back after these messages.
Johnny, I don't know what we'd do without you. Hire someone else, I suppose.
Make it shorter.
No, but really, in an unstable and unpredictable world, we can rely on one thing, aside from the brilliance of sessions. We can rely on this. Within the next few weeks or possibly months, there will be another weird scandal or celebrity upset emanating from the business that we call show. I myself was embroiled in something of a hoo-ha a few years ago, a hoo-ha that had many repercussions. The least predictable and I think oddest of these was that it turned out I had a Brazilian admirer, a singer-songwriter called Zeca Balero, who read in the Sao Paulo newspapers about my abrupt disappearance from the West End and was so affected by it that he wrote a song called Stephen Fry, or Stephen Fry as he calls me. His debut album, catchily entitled Per Andara Stephen Fry, was released last year.
Por onde andará Stephen Fry? Por onde andará Stephen? Ninguém sabe do seu paradeiro. Ninguém sabe pra onde ele foi, pra onde ele vai. Por onde andará Stephen Fry? Por onde andará Stephen? Ninguém sabe do seu paradeiro. Ninguém sabe pra onde ele foi, pra onde ele vai. Stephen maybe feeling all alone. Stephen never do this again. Come back home. Se correr o bicho pega Stephen. Se ficar o bicho gone.
Ah, dear, oh dear. I mean, what? Well, it turns out that a Norwegian band called the Margarets have also written a song called Stephen Fry. I can't for a minute deny that I'm flattered by this attention, but there is also an uneasiness, I feel, not unlike those tribes who believe that being photographed steals away the soul. The fact is, I may have a level of celebrity, but people who haven't met me don't know me. Yet I can't help feeling that lots of people believe that they know me. Beechy, you are well known for specialising in addiction disorders, but most especially amongst the very famous indeed, Elton John, Michael Jackson, Robbie Williams, Michael Barrymore, Gaza and so on, have sought your help. I don't want you to breach ethics, of course, and talk about people who aren't here. So instead, let me enjoy, if I can, the opportunity for some free help for myself. Is my occasional panicky feeling that I no longer have a personality, that it's been sucked out of me and now exists only in the public domain, is that a common thing?
I think it's, I call it sort of running on empty.
Yeah.
Because I think the people that perform, you know, we're all on, you know, and it's like, what's on spelled backwards? How many times do you say that? How many times do performers say no? I've seen a lot of people that have come to me that want to be famous. You know, they're starting off and they want some help with it. And maybe sensible managers or whatever have sent them to me. And there's one reoccurring phrase, and it's like, well, when I get there, it'll be all right.
Yes.
When I get there.
There is no place. There is no single time when you get anywhere. Exactly.
So how do they know it's going to be all right when they don't
it's
know what
also,
there
of course,
is?
extremely hard if you're struggling up a hill towards what you believe to be a golden city, to see someone bruised and shaken coming away from it saying, don't bother to go there, I've been there, it's useless. Because you're never going to take their word for it.
No.
It's no good me or anybody else saying, don't bother to try and be famous, because it's a false dream.
But I've also met some people that are famous and say that they don't want to be famous when in fact they do.
Yes, this is the problem.
Love it.
I mean, I didn't answer the question I asked everybody else about the button, and some days I feel I would press the button and not want to be famous, and other days I have to be perfectly honest and say that as a child and when I used to watch Parkinson, I was absolutely obsessed with the fame of the people on there and loved the idea of being up there with them, and I can't deny that that's true. But I also can't deny it's true that there have been various miseries that I wish I could get rid of, and that I enjoy going to certain countries where I can hold my head up and not wear sunglasses or whatever.
Performers, celebrities, if you want to use that, musicians, are so vulnerable that they don't even believe it. So
now I'm going to turn to Matthew Freud now, who is perhaps the most well-known press officer, PR man in the country. Now, it used to be that famous people had what was called a private secretary. Now they tend to have a press secretary, which says perhaps more about the way the world's changed than anything else. Do you sometimes feel that your two jobs, one to protect people from exposure and having their photographs in the paper, and the other to push people's photographs being in the paper, actually might drive you personally into a state of complete non-being?
No, I mean the job I do is relatively straightforward. I mean, people who are in the public eye have a brand, if you like. I mean, something that allows them to sell to the public or allows the public some access to them, and whether that's a can of fizzy drink or a celebrity, it's broadly the same thing.
Psychologically it isn't. I mean, the manager of Fanta can easily separate himself from the product. Yeah?
So psychologically, I mean, it's exactly, and I think to pick up on what Beechy was saying, he sees people perhaps before and after, and I have the sort of sometimes unpleasant duty of seeing people through the process, and I think two very bizarre things happen when people become famous, and the first is they actually revisit the first year of their life. It was an extraordinary thing when you watch a baby who, when they're born, believe that they are the entire universe. And there's no distinction between where they stop and the universe starts, and somewhere between sort of 6 and 9 and 12 and 18 months, they begin to understand that they are separate from their mother and separate from their father, separate from the world around them. And what happens when someone gets famous is that boundary that establishes in very, very early life becomes blurred. Because rather than understanding where you start and stop, you suddenly see yourself appear in the universe, which actually has nothing to do with you. You see yourself on television when you're not on television. You're at home doing the hoovering. And I think that's the first thing that happens. I think the second thing that's significant is that, and again it relates back to childhood, is that one's ability to affect external circumstances changes. And that if you are a run-of-the-mill ordinary person, you behave quite badly, people around you say, you're behaving quite badly, stop it. Or if you're in a bad mood, other people say, God, you're in a bad mood, sod off, and come back when you're in a better mood. When you're quite famous and there are people around you who are sort of dependent on you because either they're in your employ or they're in the employ of film companies or television companies or record companies, and their sole job is to make sure that you're happy, what basically happens is that you reproduce the role of a very spoiled child, willingly or unwillingly, but you find that actually your behaviour is universally acceptable, whatever it is.
You just don't hear the word no. But this thing of when you actually cross over from being vaguely well-known to being a celebrity, and whether one's aware of it, because some people become famous overnight, others, I've felt I sort of leaked vaguely into public consciousness over a number of years, which is, if you're going to have to become it, is the best way to do it. And Emma, I suppose you did too, though you didn't ever wake up and find yourself famous. You just noticed that a few more people in Sainsbury's noticed you, and then a few more, and so on, and then you sort of realised you were. Have you ever had trouble with it? Do you like it?
I think the worst thing, I mean, we're talking about the celebrities themselves. I think the worst thing, and why I would press that button as a shot if I was still allowed to do the work, which I love doing, is the effect it has on those around you, not you.
Yes.
I mean, I think that in many ways I was quite, because I like people, so I don't mind if someone comes up to me in the street and says, oh, hello, and it's not as if I'm going to get mobbed by people going, oh, God, it's the chicken Howard's End, and that's not going to happen. So I don't mind it for myself, but I do mind it for other people, for you're in a public situation and you're with people, your nearest and dearest people that you love and respect and know to be the best, and that they'll be trampled over.
And ignored, yes.
And ignored.
But what no one
Laurie
said
Taylor.
yet, I mean, it was wonderful to hear Matthew. This is the first Freudian account, and I know I'm sure you don't mind me saying so, but of a Freudian account of celebrity. I mean, the whole idea of sort of primary narcissism, the separation of the world and the individual, and it was magnificent to hear.
Like great-grandfather, like great-grandson.
You were talking originally about name and face. No, it was. It was a fascinating thing. But I would have thought that when we're talking about the vulnerability of celebrities, or celebrities having breakdowns, or celebrities having different, what you're talking about is the particular vulnerability of the contemporary celebrity arrives from the fact that most of those contemporary celebrities are simply there, as you intimated in your opening remarks, by luck. I mean, there was a time, in the times of the great Hollywood film stars, when the great distance from ourselves, when we saw Cary Grant up there or something, where we saw Brando up there, when in fact we didn't want really to know anything particularly about their private lives. They were gods, they were heroes. We were in the dark, we were all together, we were staring at that magnificent high screen. But now anybody who wanders on, as you suggested, and reads the weather out, then can actually come along and go and see Beechy and complain about, as it were, the problems they're having with their fame.
One mustn't
the
overread
problem
that,
arises from the fact that they know themselves that there is no particular reason why it is them rather than anybody else.
Charles Lindbergh, when, after he'd, crossed the Atlantic, he couldn't send shirts to the laundry because he knew they'd never come back. When his child was kidnapped and murdered, press went into the morgue and took photographs and sold them to $5. I mean, the level of his fame was quite astonishing. Of course, he was a hero in as much as he'd achieved something quite specific, an aviational achievement, but nonetheless, that kind of attention was quite disproportionate to that achievement.
I mean, people who read an autobiography can enjoy just the same degree of international celebrity as Lindbergh, who risked his life for that.
Yeah.
Well, Laurie's absolutely right. I mean, in when celebrity was invented, if you like, by the media in the sort of golden age of Hollywood, the job of star was a very defined one, and it was absolutely a conspiracy between Hollywood and the media. And then suddenly, probably post-Watergate, which was very much a kind of a significant media moment when the media went from reporting news to making news, the media decided that actually it was much more interesting to take these stars and expose their humanity, which was actually not the function of stars in the first place. The stars was, akin to any sort of hero, whether it be military or religious or head of state or whatever. They were put up as people to be admired and people to aspire to. And then suddenly you get a media that says, well, actually we get much more mileage by exposing the human facet of this star. And isn't it interesting that this person who you used to admire and used to aspire to, in fact loves goats, or in fact dresses up in women's clothing, or in fact has been nasty to someone in the street. And so suddenly the media, which used to be in cahoots with the celebrity system, suddenly pitted itself against it. And then suddenly the media find out about you something that you don't want them to know. And then suddenly, for the first time, your agendas differ, because you say, well, hang on a sec, I don't want you to report that. And my media currency as a celebrity, I want to keep to one side of my personal currency as an individual, which is a justifiable line to draw.
I think one of the key moments, I don't know if Beechy would agree with this, is when you realise the strange complexity of it is that although, for instance, when I had what I referred to as a hoo-ha, it was part of me realised that if I had had a midlife crisis, or whatever one wants to call it, and I was an accountant, this would have been the same kind of misery, but it wouldn't have been splashed all over the papers. But also, in a strange kind of way, I couldn't deny that there was some solace to be got out of an extraordinary amount of support from people I had never met, which may well, might argue, flatters and feeds one's vanity because it is as meaningless as insults from people you've never met. But on the other hand, is a real thing. One can feel, it gives you a reason to go on simply because people tell you who've not met you.
Stephen, actually, your hoo-ha, a delicious phrase. Actually, I can't tell you how it entertained us all, and also how it multiplied our affection for you. And thank God you survived that, and you're here tonight, and we're having a nice time. But the thing is about celebrity, it strikes me, when I find celebrity so dull, is that they actually complain that the interesting thing about celebrities is not their performances and what they do actually for a living. It's actually their private lives, or their private misapprehensions, or private cock-ups, everything about it. It's only their failures that are actually fascinating. And when celebrities actually want to actually be celebrated and famous and still want a private life, that strikes me as being absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And also I find so many of them actually disappoint me because not nearly enough of them actually lead catastrophic lives. And far too many celebrities, I'm afraid, live far too long.
Are as normal as rice pudding. I mean, but you've used a very interesting... you've used
Whatever happened to being grateful, though?
Yes.
You know, to be grateful for the God-given gift that everybody around us table.
You know that Pat Phoenix? Yes. You see, there aren't many God-given gifts around because the only exception I take to what Matthew was saying was when he says the media, in a way, suddenly decide to disrupt a particular celebrity's career, that they don't work in cahoots with them as they did in the old days. I don't think it's just the media. I think it's the public. I think the public who see people on the television who realise that these people have somehow got on the television and lack any talent whatsoever are delighted to take revenge upon them, to bring them down. And the success of The Sun or The Mirror is because they actually can hear the public resistance to the idea that people can merely come on and read an auto cue are getting thousands of pounds a year and a celebrity. So there is a wonderful revenge taken by the public periodically upon people who have arrived there by pure luck.
But
I think it's a marvellous equilibrium.
Also is entertainment, isn't it? I mean,
I love them being brought down.
Absolutely,
yes.
I adore
it.
Yes, no, we may all love that, but we're also, that's kidding. We're kidding ourselves. We are members of the public. We buy the newspapers. We have made them who they are, and for us to blame them for being what we have made them, now, Laurie, don't escape it. All right, you may be the one possible pure person in the world, but I have to admit that I read newspapers. I don't want to, but I try not to read them regularly. But if I saw a story about someone, John Ketley, the weatherman, my eye would be taken to it. And I have committed that sin. And for me to say he deserves... sin of, if whatever one wants to call it. And if he is then pulled down into shame and disgrace, for me to clap my hands with glee and say he deserved it for daring to be a weatherman who was in the papers.
You have to divorce it from the man Ketley. You can feel sorry for the man Ketley, but you can be delighted that the public periodically takes its revenge upon moderately talented people who are earning vast amounts of money and claiming celebrity status.
I fear we could talk about this forever. I fear we shall have to pull together the strings of the conversation, with great thanks to Beechy and Matthew in particular for kicking it off and for everyone else for joining in. But now it is time to be soothed, solaced and bathed in beauty. Our valued musician this week is one of the most consistently original and gifted singer-songwriters around. Since 1973, I think, she's impressed the music press and industry, and more importantly, the music-loving public, with her prodigious talent, without ever intruding her personality or her ego. They say she is likely, when asked by a journalist where she lives, to give an answer like, somewhere. Matthew Freud's worst nightmare, in fact. The press, in equal measure, intrigued, baffled and frustrated by her lack of interest in self-advertisement, dubbed her Joan Armatrading. But we are pleased, in the proper sense of the word celebrity, to celebrate her talent. Joan Armatrading is here, like Desdemona, to sing Willow.
May not be your best, good ones don't come by the score. You've got something missing, I'll help you look, you can be sure. And if it's money you want, trouble have, whatever you want me to, all you gotta do is ask. Thunder, don't go under the sheets. Lightning, under a tree. In the rain and snow, I'll be your fireside. come running to me when things get out of hand. Running to me when it's more than you can stand. I said I'm strong. Willing to be a shelter in a storm. Your willow, when the sun is out. Shelter in a storm. Your willow, when the sun is out. Fight with your best girl, the prettiest thing you ever saw. You know I will listen and I will try to get a message to her. And if it's money you want, trouble have, whatever you want me to, all you gotta do is ask. I said I'm strong. Strong. Shelter in a storm. Your willow, when the sun is out. Shelter in a storm. Your when the sun is out. Shelter in a storm. Your willow, when the sun is out.
Magnificent. Thank you so much. And a song about willow, which has given mankind two of its greatest products, cricket and aspirin. And now, I know this song is part of an album called Lullabies with a Difference, which is for a charity that you and the great Gus Dudgeon, always a hero of mine because he produced the Bonzo Dog album, you managed to round up Jules Holland, Melissa Etheridge, the Cranberries, Mark Knopfler, Brian May, Tina Turner, and it's for a charity called PACE, which is something to do with the Hungarian Peto Institute or something, is that right?
Yes, the charity is called PACE, and it is families with children with cerebral palsy. The thing that I find is, as a celebrity, other celebrities want to be very helpful, and they want to show their appreciation for the thing that they've been given.
A sense of payback or whatever, more, but this is one you've chosen.
But this is one I've chosen, and as I say, they, in order to get the sort of awareness that they want to have, they have to go to a celebrity. And so, anyway, yes, I said
well,
yes.
all I can say is they're very lucky to get you, Joan, and we're very lucky to have had you, and thank you very much. Well, we could talk about this fame business, of course, forever, but we don't have Laurie Taylor's qualifications as a professor of sociology at Birkbeck, of course, London, to put it into incomprehensible English. Perhaps he and Tom Baker can throw some valuable darkness on the subject.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Tom Baker, let me put it like this. Where are you biggest?
Well, my wife once said...
No, I meant in the world,
Oh, in the world. Oh, well, in the world. Well, I'm very big in Abu Dhabi. Oh,
yes.
I don't know how to turn that to
Abu
my
Dhabi.
advantage. Apart from Abu Dhabi, I think St. Louis, Missouri, I'm very big there. I once remember at a science fantasy convention one August in St. Louis, 120 degrees.
What, that would be centigrade?
Of course, yes. And then I was faced with the task of greeting 1,500 sweating women.
Who'd all come to see you as Doctor Who.
Indeed, and were shaking from head to foot, and there was no time for me to sign autographs and things like that, so I was just going to bless them or lay my hands upon them. But anyway, 1,500 sweating women. And when I got to the first one was so ugly, I cannot tell you, no one had ever loved her. And it brought out the St. Francis of Assisi in me, and so my judgment fled, and I just embraced her. This caused an absolute flurry of excitement down the line. It went like an electric shock. They said, you get embraced. And so I was faced with embracing them all.
I can't help but notice that you're an older man. Have you given any thought to what happens to the ageing celebrity?
Well, there are no fears there. Of course, in a sense, celebrity confers immortality. But, of course, if joints stiffen and as the darkness comes down, there's always the Stanner stair lift. And as one gets to the final moments, these are issued to you, sometimes by the BBC, as a celebrity kind of bonus, a perk.
Yes.
And you go up to heaven in a Stanner's. Yes, you go to be greeted at the gates of heaven by Richard Baker and Thora Hurd, which is a wonderful sensation for, of course, those who are so close to it. And I just think to myself, dear Richard, dear Thora.
Dear God. Thank you, Tom Baker.
Valuable contribution from Laurie Taylor and Tom Baker. Well, before we pinch the loaf of the programme, I'd like just to go round the table and just get a final thought. Let's suppose, it's a little like the button, let's suppose we had a child and they had as an ambition a career like singing or acting or sport, which was almost bound to provide them with fame were they to excel in it. Would one be, on balance, slightly disappointed or slightly pleased, or is fame not so bad a thing, after all, that it should actually deter one, Emma?
It would very much depend on the personality of the child.
Damn, I think
if
it would.
had an addictive personality, I would try and steer it in the direction of something like, I don't know, tennis or something. It's off the top of my head.
Yes. Beechy.
I think if they could do more, as Laurie was saying earlier on, than read an autocue, and they were the genuine article, I would be delighted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny?
Exactly the same as Beechy, and I would just say pursue the skill, the cunning and secret art of whatever it is you do, and then when you're really, really good and people want to talk to you about it, go fine and then carry on doing the job.
Yeah. Jen?
Yes, I'd encourage them as long as they had the talent.
Good. Oh, well, this is optimistic. Tom?
Well, I've no desire at all to tamper with either of my children. I mean, I think they just must get on and cock it up the best way they can. Yeah. And one hopes that, it'll be okay for them. But whatever the tragedy unfolds, because, anyone can cope with happiness. Yeah. But, I do think, actually, the tragedy, failure, disgust, especially self-disgust, can turn out finally to be very commercial.
Tell me about it. Matthew. Matthew is a product of one of the most famously dysfunctional families in history. That's not fair at all.
Yeah, it's entirely fair. I think what's important for anyone who is even flirting with fame, whether it's foisted upon them by virtue of their surname or pursued by them by virtue of their career, is it's terribly important to understand what the implications of fame are and what it means and how to use it and how to allow it not to use you.
Now, thanks to huge quantities of melatonin, my circadian rhythms are working beautifully, and my body clock, sponsored by Accurist, tells me that there is very little time left, and urgent present reality is about to become just another memory. Just another memory? Oh, no. A memory I hope to be wrapped in lavender paper and stored in the bottom drawer of your heart. A security blanket of a memory to be taken out on cold winter evenings and rubbed softly against the cheek. A memory, mind you, that would be meaningless and insulting, cheap, drab and indifferent, were it not for the presence of Beechy, Colclough, Matthew Freud, Laurie Taylor, Tom Baker, John Sessions, Joan Armatrading and Emma Thompson, and you, of course, the listener. This is Stephen Fry, hoping that you can join me again. Same bat time, same bat channel, different bat ting lineup. Much love.